I just want to say sort of once again, sort of welcome. There's wow, up to 37 people now, so a really good number of people. Thank you very much indeed for joining today. What I wanted to do was just cover the sort of the main themes that came out from the launch sessions that we did back in November. There's a number of quite a number of questions raised when we use this sort of the Slido application to sort of get feedback during the session. So there's some questions that were raised during that, and sort of a couple of particular areas that I want to cover. So I really want to just go through, touch on those questions, then go through and do my best to put a little bit of flesh on the bones and provide sort of some worked examples of what projects who are currently using the process are doing and how they're presenting that at the moment. And hopefully that will help you understand how you can apply it to your project. So I do have a slideshow that I'm going to go through. So I'm just going to whack that up now. I've got, unfortunately, I think you've got about 30 minutes of me talking, but please, if there's anything that you need to sort of stop and get some understanding on as we go through, please don't hesitate to sort of put something in the chat or raise a question with me, and I'll do my best to answer it as we go through. But like I say, I've got about sort of 30 minutes of material to go through, and then really it's going to be an open floor to you guys if there's any other sort of issues or concerns, or even feedback from those who are using the life cycle process at the moment and are applying it to their projects. So if I just share my screen with you now. So what I wanted to go through is, like I say, there were a number of themes that were raised. So this doesn't cover every single question that was raised or a point that was raised during the initial launch sessions, but the 10 themes that we've captured, I think really sort of cover the sort of broad spectrum of the things that were raised. And I think there's a couple of things I just want to sort of focus on now. I'm not going to read through all of this sort of line by line because I don't want to insult your intelligence. But I think the key thing is that, you know, really the process was sort of culled from some stuff that's already going on around the business. I think, as I said during the presentations, it really is a distillation of what is happening around the business and what is being really successfully applied in a number of different areas. So really keen to make sure that where we don't have that exposure in some parts of the business, just want to make sure that we could share that across all the projects. So we're not asking anyone to do anything that's not already being done by the business, and it is being used really successfully in other areas. And the second point about improving the collaboration, I mean, that's one of the key areas that I think we were keen to address, because there did appear to be a little bit of a disconnect between what we were bidding and selling to our customers and then what you as project teams were required to deliver. So really looking to make sure that we can close that apparent divide and make sure there's a much stronger handshake between the two parts of the business that really should be a seamless part of the overall process. And we are seeing some really positive progress in that space, particularly those projects going through Project Board. And we hope we can replicate that now across all projects, even those not going up to Project Board. The third one about additional costs, I think just to sort of reiterate, we're not looking to burden or overburden projects with bureaucracy. It's all about making sure that we avoid surprises, but also more importantly, we can make sure that when setting projects up, even during the bid stage, that all the best practice that's been understood in what will make a project work is applied as soon as possible. So although there is a bit of initial effort in putting this in place, what we're hoping and what we're expecting to see is that there's a lot of what we see at the moment is erosion of margin, where the unknowns sort of come and sideswipe our project teams by all the things that they didn't realize they needed to do at the beginning of the project, end up having to be brought into scope and sort of addressed and sort of delivered as they're sort of well into the delivery stage of the project. So by putting in place a much more holistic view that allows us to see sort of from the beginning to the end what it is we're expecting to do, it gives us a much better chance to make sure that those requirements are highlighted at the start and fully planned for and allowed for within our planning. Question 5 is all about the project, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit because there is a lot of detail in the sort of the process document, but I've got a little bit of a worked example which hopefully will help sort of go through that. And new roles and responsibilities, there is some work that I'm doing at the moment with the sort of the project leadership team to make sure that we've got much more clearly defined RACI for all the project roles. So there's a clear view of the roles within a project and what their accountabilities are. So that is a work in progress. We do have a RACI already within the process document, which is pretty high level, I'll admit, but we're trying to make sure we put a bit more meat on the bones there as well, and that will all be sort of put into the PM hub when it's completed, so that we've got that guidance for individual sort of project teams, almost as a generic RACI that will work across all projects. Tailoring is an area that I know is of big concern for those people who aren't going to project board. You know, how does this apply to me when my project isn't going to project board? It's worth less than 5 million. So I will touch on that in a moment. And I think the key one for me was, and I think that covers quite a large amount of the sort of the this final page about tailoring, and it is key that, you know, we do understand that this is a framework, and the framework is there to provide guidance and support for you doing your projects, but it isn't necessarily, you know, hard and fast, and not everything is necessarily mandated, but it does provide you with that guidance on what needs to be completed. And then finally, I think one of the major points that came out is that, yeah, we're launching this process, but what does good look like? And what I've done is I've pulled some information from the current sort of projects that are going through project board to give an indication of what is currently being used and presented at project board, which is based on what we've done here on the Project Lifecycle release 2. So that was really what I wanted to go through. This is all uploaded onto the PM hub, and I will sort of show where this is well, it's located at the moment. And there is a project management guide that we've put together just to try and put a little bit more information together, so that, you know, looking at the process document can be quite a dry process. So what we've tried to do is put a little bit clearer guidance on what you do at each stage, what the various work streams are. So once again, you know, that has been uploaded to Project Hub to hopefully provide a little bit more information on what good looks like. So just going on to tailoring, I think the key thing here is tailoring is all about, first of all, looking at the project type, and then making sure that you understand the service type as well. So project type, there's two sort of key things we're looking at. If you look at the box in the bottom left-hand corner, you know, there's two things we're really looking at there. There's the characteristics of the project, which will make it simple, normal, and standard. And there's also a typical value. And I say typical value because that's not a hard and fast rule. And I think the key thing there is that if you look across, you know, there's a number of different requirements that sit, or characteristics that sit within those projects. So you could actually have a simple project with a high value that could be managed as a simple project, purely and simply because it's very low risk, quite short duration, very simple and delivery phase, and it's you know, something that we do day in, day out, and there's a great deal of confidence that, you know, we don't need to put the rigorous controls in that we would do where there's a lot more ambiguity, where there's a higher delivery risk, where it's a longer duration, where there's a load of different dependencies and delivery phases, which would make it a much more complex project. So the characteristics I think are just as important as the value, and those will drive, you know, what it is that we need to be doing as far as tailoring is concerned. And clearly, the more complex the project, the more controls we need to put in place to make sure that we can, you know, avoid the sort of the gotchas as we go through that project due to those sort of delivery risks or the complexities. But also the service type, and that's in the box in the top right hand corner. The service type will then depend on, particularly in the delivery phases, which are the delivery gates that you need to be going through. So not all phases will apply to all projects. So the turnkey project, and the service types are taken from our sort of bidding process. So this is what goes into Salesforce right at the very start of a project. So it will be bid, and all of the activities that happen will be based on the service type that we're looking to deliver as part of that opportunity. So the turnkey is where we're doing everything from design right the way through to delivering the technical solution, and maybe even managing that service into life and beyond. A deployment service where we're doing the installation and commissioning of a particular sort of technology or a solution. Support and maintenance, where we could be just going in and 2Ping and then taking over and running someone else's network. So there's a number of different sort of iterations of what we deliver, and what we're trying to do is make sure that when you look at that, you know, make some of those gates will be absolutely mandatory as far as those services concerned. Some will be optional, but once again, it comes down to the delivery risk and the complexity of your project as to whether or not all of those gates are going to be appropriate. And then that's where the sort of the next picture sort of comes into account. And that's where it's just trying to provide a very simplified picture. So if you look at the top line, the complex turnkey projects, all of those gates will largely apply to those projects because they'll need that level of oversight and control to make sure that we can provide the exec in particular the confidence that if it's a strategically important project, that we're delivering it and we're going to deliver it successfully. But obviously, as we go down the levels of complexity, risk, and value, then obviously the controls don't need to be as tight, but there will still be a need to have those gates to make sure that the project is delivering what it needs to at the right time in the right way. So when you get down to those simple projects, you may get down to just, and like I say, this isn't mandated. You could put in more gates depending on the level of controls that are needed by the project sponsor. You still have the initial governance though. So, the fact that gate 4 saying that we've completed mobilization and we're ready to actually deliver, so, we're ready to go to project launch, doesn't negate the fact that you still have to go through that early governance. You still need to go through the go, no go governance. You still need to go through the deal review, and there still will be that bid and sales handover because we still have that as part of that bid winning process. So none of that goes away. We just won't have necessarily those as formal gates where we've got the project sponsors and the sort of the project manager involved in those. So that's just a quick oversight on sort of some of the frequently asked questions and also a little bit on tailoring. And the key thing here is having that discussion, very early on. Tailoring is done right at the very early stage of the project. So, the project will already have an idea of what it needs to be when we're doing that initial bidding. So when we're going into the sort of the deal review, at that stage, we've had the ITT, we know the shape and size of the project, so we'll know the level of complexity, the level of value, so we'll already have decided whether or not that's going to be going to project board. And also based on the service type and the duration, we'll know the sort of the type of gates and milestones that we'll need to put in place to control the projects. And then obviously when we get into the project mobilization phase, that's when the project manager and the project sponsor will sit down together and agree exactly what good looks like, how we make sure that what is it within the framework can be aligned to exactly what the project requires to deliver successfully right the way through to project closure at gate 9. So whistle stop tour of the frequently asked questions and tailoring. Before I move on to the next bit, which is sort of looking at some worked examples of projects going through the gated process at the moment. Any questions or points on that? Okay, right. In that case, I'll move swiftly on. So moving on to the next one's sort of, and I suppose this is now, which projects are going to go to project board. So the reason I put this in here is, once again, it's laid out quite clearly in the process documentation, but there's only three questions you should be asking yourself every time you've got your project, and this will largely be happening within sort of the prior to the bidding phase. So this will already be a done deal before it comes to most projects, but you'll be going to project board if its value is over 5 million, if there's a significant level of engineering required, and this is largely going to be driven by the technical team, based on the level of technical complexity, the level of technical input they need to put in there, the newness of the technology or the complexity of how we're going to put that system together. Well, that will drive that sort of answer to the second question. And thirdly, that risk category. And this is all about the risks associated with delivering the project. Is it a service that we haven't delivered before? Does it require software or product development or integration? Have we got a key dependency on a third party in order to deliver this? By no guaranteed volume, it largely means that, what's our break even? Can we guarantee that we're going to deliver enough or produce enough of this that is actually, whatever initial investment we put into the design and development of it, we're actually going to make sure we're going to get that from the actual outcome and deliveries within the project itself. And whether or not we think there's going to be a high level of change, what has our experience been of working with that customer? And once again, it comes down to that final one, what is our relationship with that customer? Is it a new one that we need to learn? Is it someone that we already know and is quite challenging? So all of those factors will sort of lead into whether or not there's a high risk category associated with it. And as you can see in the table in the center on the left hand side, that will then give you that sort of risk score. And if it's 3 or above, even for those low value projects, as I said, if there's a high risk associated with that project, although the value is below 5 million, it may well be that you'll be expected to go to project board because it could be because of that level of complexity, because of the fact we're trying to win new work with a new customer. That may all lead into it being sort of strategically important enough for it to go to project board. Right. So just, sorry, was there a question? Nope. Okay. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so I'm 15 minutes in, so I've just gone through that. So what I want to do now is just sort of step through. So this slides that I've got here are a combination of what's been put together as the sort of the project manager's handbook. So what we've done is broken down each of the phases and the gates to sort of try and provide a little bit more clarity about what is it that's required as you go through each of those phases and what needs to be presented at each of the gates. So for this, I'm just going to quickly go through gate 0 and gate 1. So gate 0 is very much the early part of the process. We're looking to sort of identify whether or not we're going to invest time, energy and effort into an opportunity. And then I'll step into gate 1, where we've decided that, yes, we are going to go for it. We're now looking to make sure that we can set up the bid team to actually deliver that. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of input that we need between that initial part, which is all around the bid winning process, and the opportunity owner putting together a case to say that this is actually worth chasing, right the way through to actually we want to bid it, so we need to make sure that we've got not only the bid process in place, but also we've got procurement lined up, we've got finance have done their bit on due diligence, we've got the technical team lined up, we've got QHS on board with it, and we've got service delivery on board. So what we're trying to do with the process is make sure that we're getting all those dots connected early on in the process, so that when it comes to the project itself being launched, a lot of the early footwork has been done, and the key sort of work streams feeding into your projects will have had visibility and ideally input into and the bid before it's actually sort of gone through and we've got that customer agreement. So trying to give you that little bit more confidence that yes, there's a lot more sort of effort to sort of bring these sort of various functions together much earlier on in the process. So what I'm going through now is basically sort of the packs that are delivered at project board. So this is what the project board will be expecting to see, but also it's a good guidance for what you should be doing for any project as to what goes through at each of these gates. And this is just really almost like a tick list of what needs to be done as you go through. So what we've got here is, and really all of these templated reports are there to make sure that we focus on the key messages and things that we need to communicate, either to the project board for the larger projects, but also for the project sponsors for those sort of projects that then go to project board. This is still just as vital that we get this information together and tell a coherent story in what it is that we're trying to deliver. And it is really all about that vital bit of communication of saying, I know where I am, I know what I need to do, and I know how I'm going to get there. And this is all part of helping you put some structure around how we do that, which is what the framework is there to do. So really sort of, you know, some basic information about the framework. Within Salesforce, which is obviously our customer relationship management tool, which the opportunity owners and bid managers use to manage that bid winning process, you know, we're already collating at this stage information about the opportunity, you know, what the requirement is, what our position is as far as talent is concerned, why we want the work, and also an overview as to, you know, what it is that we're going to do as our winning strategy. Gate 0 is all about trying to get resources available and together before we've actually had the ITT. So it's making sure that all that pre-work is going in so that when the ITT lands, we're actually sort of match fit and ready to go. So sometimes we do need to start investing in a bid before we've even received the ITT. So that's the point of Gate 0. And the key thing for any gate is you're there to get a decision. You're there, as I said, you've got to tell a story. You're there to put across your point of what it is that I'm doing. This is how I'm delivering it, and this is what I need. So, you know, every one of these is that you get to a gate, you need a decision. So, you know, what is your recommendation for that gate? Right, I have a question. So, Sarah, yes.
Sorry, this is going to be really loud. I'm in the office and it's super busy.
Okay.
I just wanted to know, and you might have thought about this already, and no doubt you have, Robert, how we're capturing big pieces of work that are coming through as change requests, basically, or they're piggybacked on the back of an already operational contract. So we've got a maintenance contract with someone, you know, and we've had it for 5 years, but actually now they want us to put in a whole new CRM system. So they just kind of change control it into an overarching contract, which can actually be, so for East Sussex, we're doing a CRM activity. It's over £300,000. I know it's below the 5 million, but it still needs looking after. How are we capturing that sort of work?
There is an existing process, and it's all part of our sort of our tender and contract approval. So none of those should go through without the appropriate governance being applied. So, and this is where we need to make sure that all the business processes are working together. So I've captured that point because I think it's a really valid one, Sarah, and I will make sure that I sort of feed that back in, because we do have a process in place. We do have that sort of tender and contract governance process where we need to go through those DA approvals, which means that it will be fed in because all of these are linked. But I will, now you've raised it, I will make sure that there is an explicit link.
Check one. You can check one if you want, Robert. Just as a good example, it's called SAN-A. So it's between 3,000 and 5,000 emergency vehicles. We're going to be going in and swapping out radios. So a big piece of work over 18 to 24 months. But the cash side of it is going to be managed by an operational CR, customer relationship manager.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that.
And the coordination side is project,
Yeah, it will be. And the thing is, like all these things, we need to go through that governance. We need to make sure that we're mobilized. So all the things that the life cycle is there to do, as long as that process is properly sort of fed in. But thank you for that, Sarah. That's a really good point. I will take that away to make sure that there is a way of feeding that into the process. Any more points? No. Okay, in that case, I shall move swiftly on. So that was gate 0. So just going on now to obviously gate 1, when we're actually looking to put together the bid. So once again, this is all very much the early stages before, it may be that project managers are being pulled in at this stage. And I know in rail in particular, I think there's much more early involvement of the project teams in the work that's being bid. And I think, this is one of the areas I know that is looking to be addressed. How do we make sure that we bridge that gap? So, there is a good chance that, there may be project management input when you go into the bid. But the key thing for this is you go through gate 1, you're about to launch the bid. There's a lot of stuff now is that we are saying you need to think about these things, and it's always going to be done by exception. So all of these things need to be done. We just need to go through. So as you can see, there's a lot of things there that we're looking to cover at gate 1. It's not just a case of saying, can we go ahead and do the bid? But we're already talking at this stage about, we need to make sure that the sales and opportunity plan has been updated. We've got a solution summary where there's a technical input required. We're now talking about net zero and social value strategy. That's becoming a really key part of what we do now, particularly on public service contracts. So, that is now being looked at well and very early in the process. Pricing and commercial terms, making sure that's clearly understood. What's our bid mobilization plan? And we sort of start stepping through those things, and all of those are now getting sort of checklists that allow us to start working through to make sure that, once again, all the distilled best practice of what have we learned from previous bids and previous projects, we can now apply it much more consistently in what we're doing with our various projects. So once again, we're looking to that overview, which is very similar to what we did at gate 0, but now you can see that we're now expanding on that sales and opportunity plan. So a lot more of this information is now being gathered. It should all be going into Salesforce because that's where we're getting the information from. So it's not just now the requirements, our position and our winning strategy. We're now talking about, well, what's the procurement involvement? Who are our technology partners? What are the things that we need to be doing for the customer? What are their hot buttons that we need to address? What's the key reason for bidding? Why are we going after this work? What are the themes we're going to use in winning this work? But more importantly, what are the risks? Now, risks here could be very much around the bid. Still very much the early stages. What are the risks around our ability to win this bid? So, for example, here, NG Bailey is the partner here. They're an unknown quantity. We don't know how we're going to work with them in that. So things like that begin to come out at this stage, which once again allows us to have a much more holistic view of the project overall. Also, the solution summary, by this stage, we've got the technical team involved. So we're already beginning to pull together what it is, that overview, how we're going to deliver a technical solution that meets what we anticipate to be the customer's requirements within the ITT. And as I said earlier, we're already talking about, what's our net zero strategy? How are we going to meet the requirements of, our sort of, our environmental and emissions and all the other requirements that may be placed upon us, not only, internally because of our own requirements, but also by the client. And social values, is becoming quite a big part of what we do within our bids. Some of the public service bids now, we're talking up to 30% of our scoring on our bid is the social values. How we're going to benefit either the local community or sort of provide that sort of social values input that's going to benefit, as part of that bid. So, and that's going to become not just an important part of us winning the bids, but when the project launches, a really important part as well of making sure that whatever commitments we made in those bids, in the bid, we understand it and we're able to make sure that we can follow that through by those requirements being met by our project delivery teams actually delivering on those commitments. Pricing and commercial, once again, so we're already thinking about how we're going to make sure we're going to make this a profitable. So at this stage, we're already thinking about, how we're going to make sure that whatever pricing we do, we're going to make sort of good margin out of this this work. Talked about the risk factors earlier. There is a grid that's already available as one of the project templates that sits on Everything Talent. Not something that necessarily needs to be completed by the projects, but it should be there as a project document. And once again, it does most of the work for you. You just need to go into those contributing risk factors, work out whether it's a low, medium or high risk associated with those 6 different factors, work out what the expected project value is, and that will then give you where it sits within the risk evaluation matrix on the left hand side. And as you can see, it's a medium value project at 8 million, but it's showing as a medium risk score. And because it sits within that category, clearly this would be a project that would be going to project board for its governance. And then, as with all stage gates, what we're looking for there is what the recommendation is, what are the next steps, and what do we need to get, what decision do we need to get out of that project board. I'm most probably conscious of time, so I'm not going to go through that. I've got a whole load of slides here as well, but once again, all this information sits within the project management guide that's been uploaded to the PM Hub. So once again, trying to break it down so you can see that when you go through the bid production and you get to gate 2, which is the deal review, this is just before we submit our bid to the client. We need to make sure we've not just completed the bid winning process, we've got procurement properly engaged to do their pre-tender due diligence. We've had finance involved to do their pre-tender due diligence. We've had technical involved, we've had QHS involved, service delivery where there's a service solution involved, and also, project, we need to make sure that by this stage we've already decided, what that life cycle tailoring is going to look like, which are the gates that are going to apply to this particular project. So I'm going to scoot straight through these because it's really just a bit of a repetition. I think the key thing I wanted to go through now is just sort of touch on, we're now into delivery. So all of that work has been done. And what we're looking at is, as you can see, we're taking the process, step by step. And at each gate, there is a build on what we did in the previous gate. So that's the key thing, is that the expectation is you don't get through to gate 5 unless you've completed gate 4. So all of those things we've seen previously should have been signed off, and if they haven't, then there'll be some outstanding action or some activity that needs to be completed to make sure those things are covered off. So it's really important that no work is left behind. We're always looking to make sure we're not just looking forward, but making sure that as we get to each stage gate, whatever it is we should have achieved at that stage, if we haven't, we report by exception, we make sure we have a plan for it, and you don't get through a gate unless you can demonstrate that we've got a plan to address anything that was outstanding when you were going through there. So phase 5 is clearly all about that solution design and development. So what we're looking to do here is make sure that we get to gate 5 before we do any building, before we start going out and buying kit and actually starting to sort of really invest in sort of substantial amounts of equipment, that we're actually got a design that we're comfortable with that is actually going to do the job as far as that's concerned. So once again, we've gone through those 2 technical reviews at high level and low level. We've gone through if there's service involved, we've gone through that service design. On the project management side, we've got not just the documents in place that we need, but we've also got the logs in place that we need that help put those controls in place that not only see the status of the project, but also make sure that we've got the appropriate controls of scope, risk, whatever it is that we need to make sure we put in place to keep that that project on track. So once again, you get to gate 5, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're saying, this is what's presented at project board. But once again, at gate 5, it's a good checklist of what you should be doing for your projects. You go through what are the actions from the last gate that we need to have addressed, and have they been completed? What's the status of the project? Where are we now with the project? What's your project plan? So where have we got to within your baseline plan, and where are you planning to get to? And then start going through the key deliverables that should have been delivered as part of the life cycle process. So when you go through, good example here, what is it that we need to have done? So the things that were outstanding at the last gate, those are things we're now looking to make sure that are being actioned and closed. status of the project. We're not asking you to create anything other than just a cut and paste of your last service contract review pack. So what you can see here, and this is going up to sort of project board. They're not looking for a specific section of this to be done other than just cut and paste what was in your last contract review pack. So trying to make sure that we minimize the need for double handling of information. So we're just looking for where were we at our last project review. So we go through the milestones, we go through the financials, and then we go through any risks and issues. So there's no necessarily new information here, but obviously there's an opportunity for you as a project manager to put in your own commentary on top. So what has happened since that contract review pack was together? Where have things developed? On the finance side, on the risk side, on the issue side, so that we can give that that update at the key points. And this is where we're looking at, and what is the baseline plan? Where did you say you're going to be? Where are we now? And if we're behind, what is it we're doing about it? So making sure that we give that project update. And this is something that I think is going to be really important going forwards is, let's make sure that when we go through each of these gates, we sort of take a moment to reflect on what is it we said we were going to do, but more importantly, what is it that has changed since we actually started that particular part of the project. So within that particular phase, what has changed? And this is going to be absolutely vital that we can see what are the changes that have come through. What in this case, there's been a number of CCNs that have been raised. Let's go through what each of those have. What's the impact on the project? What have we done about it? But also, just as importantly, what are the lessons that we've learned and how can they be applied to the next stage of the project as we go through? And also, what can be shared with a wider audience? And the key thing is, whether this is being presented to the project board or to your project sponsor, it gives that opportunity to put those lessons out there so that we can apply them. And that's how we're going to continue to improve the process, I think, by making sure that we capture those lessons, we present them and look at how we can apply them, not only to our own projects, but also to other projects. And this is going to be sort of, the key thing here is, once again, as you go through the gate, it's all about making sure that there's a whole list of deliverables, but this is really your opportunity to say, these are the tangible outcomes that I need to have achieved by the time I get to this gate. So is my project where it said it was going to be? Have I delivered the things that I said needs to be delivered at this point? How can I demonstrate that? So once again, those are the things we've got there. We've completed the technical reviews. We've completed the installation guides. But actually, the key thing here is that we're not yet at the stage where we've completed the low-level design. So that's still ongoing. So clearly, this is a project that is of long duration. So it's got a long duration phase. So no doubt, what we've done here is that we've completed the high level design, not yet done the low level, but what we're doing is going to the project board and providing an update prior to that, just to give them the confidence the project remains on track to deliver what it said it's going to deliver within the timescales it said it's going to. So this is an ongoing project. So we haven't actually got to gate 5 yet. So clearly this is an interim gate to show that the progress that we've been made and give the board confidence of where we're going to get to by the next stage gate. Hi, sorry, I got a question. Ash, got a question.
Yeah, I got a question previously about that gate 5, because that looks in a situation where you've got one set of documents or one stream of work. What if you're working in multiple streams? How then you're gonna go through the gate processes? Surely you don't want to go through, let's say you've got 10 different stations, you can have all that sets of documents in 10 different stages. How the gate process will be tailored to accommodate that sort of scenarios.
And this
if that makes sense.
It does. It makes absolute sense. And I think, this is where, the project phases are going to be critical, because there will be things where you'll have sort of, how you organize the project, or even how the milestones have been set up with the client could well drive, what the gates are that you need to be achieving. So invariably what I would say is that, you need to look at what works for your project to put the right level of controls in place. And invariably, the top level of that is going to be, when are your key customer milestones, particularly the payment milestones, where you need to demonstrate progress. But also you want to make sure you've got the controls in place to make sure you're going to hit those particular milestones and what it is that you need to achieve at each of those milestones. So, I would always say, go to the contract, go to those milestones, look at what it is that the client needs to see, and then look at how we can apply the framework to achieve that. And if there isn't sort of that clarity within it, then it's once again working with your project sponsor to say, well, how am I going to control this project? If there's a number of different streams that are ongoing, what are the key decision points that I need to have in my project? And it may be that you want to get to station 5 out of 10, and that's going to be a key decision point to make sure that it may be that you need to get to a certain stage by station 1 or 2 before you can actually then roll it out en masse to the other 8 stations, for example. So you may choose to have a gate, once you've completed, installation testing, ready for rollout of that solution to a much wider level of station. So I'm afraid I can't give you a silver bullet for that one, Ash. I think it's going to be a case that it's got to be specific to your project, and the controls need to be sensible and appropriate so that you can achieve what you need to in a controlled way.
So is it going to be the project sponsor who will determine those controls? Because if I'm honest, my current project, I was struggling to put the gates together because I had, let's say, 50 stations that were at gate 8, yet I still had designs on 30 more stations that were going through gate 5. So which made it a bit impossible for me to put these together. So is it the sponsor determining those controls?
I think between you, like
me?
I said, it's you agreeing with the sponsor. But if you need to get me involved in that discussion, I appreciate that. There's a lot of help and support needed as we put this framework in place, and I'm very happy to be involved in that discussion. If you need any help and support on that, Ash, then please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, and I'll be very happy to sort of come in and provide my help and support in whatever way I can.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, and sorry, Deborah, yeah, you got a question?
Just to follow on from Ash's question, is that going to be part of the consideration at bid? The reason I ask is that sometimes what we are required to do for the project isn't considered within the costings at the bid side of things as to the level of work that's required.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we've fed back. So myself and James are engaging very closely with the bid teams, and we're already sort of feeding that back in. And because this is like I say, a holistic approach, they can now see end to end what it is that's involved in delivery of a project. So we are working with them to make sure that they understand that actually these are all the activities that we're expecting our project to deliver, so that they can ensure that that is included within the bids. Now, I think there will always be debate as to whether or not that full range of things has been fully costed and accepted, but that consideration should be made because we've made it visible to the bid teams.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks then. I shall move on. So once again, sort of going through I'm sort of basing this on the format of the sort of the template that we're using for Project Build, but once again, absolutely appropriate right the way through for all projects. This is what we should be considering at each of these stages. So technical review 3, the low level sort of delivery activities. You can see what the deliverables are. Clearly there are defined things that need to be done, and so those 5 things there are where you need to have got your project to. So as a very simple tick list, those are things that the TR3 checklist will take you through and says, have you done all of these things in order to say that yes, I've completed what I need to actually say that I've got to the conclusion of those low level deliverables. This is sort of slightly non-standard, but once again, where service is part of the deliverable as well, really important now that we include service in that. So, this is still a work in progress. Some of these are sort of earlier slides from when we're sort of pulling this together. But, once again, we need to make sure that, if service should have been completed, the service design is part of the delivery, then we need to make sure that that's being covered and fully visible as we go through each of the stages. And that's what this is about, is making sure that we're not suddenly blindsided by the need to put a service design together when we've already completed the technical design, we're out in test, and all of a sudden we're trying to work out how we're going to sort of support this service going forward. So trying to make sure that the right things being done by the right time at the right people, and this is a way of then demonstrating that that's happening. And then finally you get to the recommendation, which is all about where are we, what are the next steps? And as you can see, clearly this is as an interim sort of report. The recommendation is not that we go through gate 5, but that we continue to progress the program activity so we can get to those gate 5 deliverables within the expected timeline. And then finally, and I appreciate I've gone a little bit over time, but this is about sort of phase 6 now, sort of moving on to the next one. And I think that, what I'm trying to sort of demonstrate here is that, each of these stages, it's all about providing projects with the guidance of this is what, these are all the activities that we expect you, and these are the areas that we expect you to be sort of interfacing with to make sure that your project is going to deliver what it needs to at the key stage that you're at. So when we get to that gate 6, when you're saying, I'm ready to install, we've got everything done, we've done the initial testing, I'm now ready to start rolling this out onto the client's network. Are we actually at the stage where it's safe to put it out on the client's network? Have we gone through that preliminary engineering sign-off? Are we ready with on the procurement side to make sure that we've got a BOM that we know works? Service delivery, have we got that service management plan in place? On the QHS side, have we got the governance and insurance looked at? And once again, project management, have we got those documents updated to reflect the state of the project, and the logs absolutely up to date to make sure that we're delivering against those controls? So once again, the agenda is all about really that tick list of what it is that you need to be delivering at this stage. And it's a repeat of what you've seen before. So project overview, and this is, for the project board primarily, but, because they see a number of different projects, but, just that overview of project objectives and contractual milestones provides them with that oversight right at the beginning of this. This is what we said we we're going to do, and this is the sort of the key dates that we're looking to deliver against. We then go through what the actions were from the last time. And once again, making sure that everything that was sort of not completed at the last gate, where are we as far as those actions concerned? We want to make sure that before we can go through this gate, anything outstanding from the previous gate has been closed. And then once again, the status of the project, it's a cut and paste straight from the contract review pack that you then drop into this. So that shows status, priorities, finance and escalations, and then finally sort of risks and issues. And once again, provides that narrative of where are we with the project at the moment before you then go into the plan. Where are we against the plan, and what is it that we need to achieve over the next sort of few days and months, depending on where we are with those gates. And the key thing for me is obviously then, having within that plan, where we are as far as, what are the key gates that we're and where are they going to be next. As you can see, gate 7 and 8 still a long way out. So a project of this size, you'll clearly be looking to do some sort of interim sort of reviews as we go through, because you want to go from some June 23 through to May 24 between those gates without that level of oversight that you need. Changes and lessons learned, again, I can't sort of emphasize this enough. Really important that we demonstrate that we're, the project is under control. We know what the changes are. These are the actions we're taking against those changes, and also where there are lessons being learned, making sure that those are being recorded and shared with a wider audience. And I put this in here because I think this is a really good example of how to demonstrate, the tangible deliverables associated with your project. So clearly, what you can see is that all of those documents is a significant large project. So all of those documents have been created, put onto UCM, and are being managed, and you can see exactly where you need to go to actually see those. So the good thing about this is, clear demonstration of all the things you're being asked for. They're all in place, they're all being sort of updated, and they're all available to support the project. And then what the deliverables, so ready to install, is all about making sure that we're ready to go from where are we as far as the sort of the completion of the testing is concerned. The testing's been done. We've got our installation manuals to a point where all the lessons that we've learned through sort of that FAT testing, we've now created sort of an installation manual which allows us to go out and safely install the equipment on the client's network. We've got a BOM in place. We've done that BOM review. We've got a service management plan, and we've completed the QEHS assurance reviews. And then stepping through each of those, then once again going through those deliverables, and this is a really good, well, I hope it is a really good sort of checklist, and provides the narrative as well, so that when you're going through each of this, have I done all the things that I needed to get that sign off from the technical team? Have I done what I need to get that sign off from the procurement team to make sure that everything that we need to is in place? And anything that's missing provides that early sort of heads up that these are areas that need to be addressed, and hopefully before you take it through the gate review, or even if they're outstanding, as long as you've got an action, you can report these as exceptions, and you just make sure that we've got an action in place as to what we're going to do and a timeline to complete it. Once again, sort of going through each of those different work streams, just sort of breaking out what it is that we're expecting from each of those so that those outcomes are clear. So conscious that I've got 14 minutes left, so I'm going to just really sort of come to a sort of fairly rapid close. A couple of final points is, we've put together, once again, within that project management guide, what the sort of the terms of reference are for our gate reviews. So the key thing here is that a gate review, whether it's at project board or with a project sponsor, they all need to cover the same things really. It's all about making sure, you know, the purpose is to review that completion of your phase objectives and outputs, to make sure you've got plans in place for that next phase, and also to request authorization to commence the next phase. It's basically saying, I've done what I said I'm going to do, I'm ready to do the next stage, and it's you getting that nod to say, yes, the project's in good shape to move on. And clearly during project execution, you're also going to confirm where you are against your overall performance against those baseline plans and revalidate that business justification. What does the P&L look like compared to what you expected to, and is it still making the margins? And if it's not, you know, what are the issues or challenges that you have there? So once again, this is within the sort of the guide that's now on the PM Hub. And a gate review, and like I say, you know, I've gone through, I suppose, what is the Rolls-Royce service that the project board get, which is, you know, a full sort of pack with templates that needs to be presented. And it's what you'd expect if you're sort of going up in front of the exec. But you know, it provides hopefully sort of a really good sort of template and guidance for any gate review. The key thing is that, you know, there is that minimum that you're looking to achieve. You know, what is the status of the project based on your latest contract review pack? What's the status of your gate deliverables? And what's the decision that you need to get out of that gate review? And as long as you can get those things, and as long as that's formally recorded, it doesn't need to be in a pack like this. You know, it can be, you know, just a conversation over a cup of coffee. As long as you've got that decision properly recorded, part of your project documentation, then it demonstrates that you've done what you said you're going to do at that particular gate, and you're ready to, and you've been given sort of clearance and authority to move on to the next stage of the project. And I think that's all I had. So what I will share with you now is just to show you on the Project Management Hub. Like I say, I'm putting stuff up on there as quickly as I can. So I've created a new page now, Project Management Guidance. So for those who haven't been there recently, what we do have on there now is from the launch, we've got the sort of launch material. So we've got the PM briefing pack that was presented. We've got a recording of that, if you can stand to listen to me for another hour. And also we've got the project management guide, which a lot of the slides that I've used today were taken from that project management guide. So that's there, and hopefully will provide sort of a simple step through of the process and give a little bit more sort of guidance on each one of those phases and gates, what needs to be presented. Also in the background, we're working on a RACI, which is going to be almost like a generic project RACI, which covers all the activities within the life cycle and all the roles that have been identified within a project, within talent, so that we can show clearly who's responsible, who's accountable, who you need to keep informed, and who you need to consult. So that's most probably going to be updated with that in due course, hopefully within the next week. And obviously I'll upload this this presentation and most probably a recording of this as well, so that once again that's available for anyone who needs it. So really trying to make sure that we've got that information out there as we can, but really now in the 11 minutes that we've got remaining, I'll just stop sharing. I'm just wondering any points on anything that I've just gone through, or any concerns or issues on people who are actually now struggling or wrestling with the project lifecycle process and would like a little bit of sort of help, support, guidance, or even provide me with a bit of feedback on. I'd be really grateful for. Okay, I appreciate there is quite a lot, but it's difficult to know how I can do this in bite-sized chunks. And in fact, just as a heads up, I'm working with the e-learning team and looking to sort of create some bite-sized training where we're looking to sort of hopefully provide those smaller chunks of information, so the opportunity to do it in your own time. So all of that is in train as well at the moment, so we can provide a little bit more sort of help and guidance. Once again, that'll be made available on the PM Hub as soon as it's completed. So I'm hoping within the next month we'll have that bite-sized training on the life cycle produced and available for people to use as well. Okay, What I will say is that if anyone has any questions, any points, please don't hesitate to get in contact with me. Very happy to answer your questions. Very happy to get engaged and involved with your projects if you feel you need a little bit more help and guidance. So, do my level best to make sure that I can help you to get the best out of the process. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you need any help or support. Okay, there is one, I think we've got one more of these surgeries set up for next month. So if anyone has, between now and then, any questions, points, anything that they think would be useful, or even if they want sort of any outside talkers, people who hopefully speak a little bit slower than I do on any subject within life cycle, then please do get in touch. Please do let me know, and I'll make sure I can sort of set up the surgery to meet your requirements and what will help you get your project sort of aligned with the process as quickly as possible.